The peace movement. Peace.
No war.
Give peace a chance.
These are some of the things that activists would say while protesting on the street, trying to get others to show their opposition for war.
What war?
Every war, from the Revolutionary War to the current Iraqi war.
Aren't there different movements for each war?
Actually, no. The peace movement could be represented using a line. You see, during times of war, activists are busy setting up protests and rallies. But even when there isn't a war going on, activists are still busy supporting democratic officers, setting up film festivals, speeches, etc. They just aren't as busy as they would be during a time of war.
What's the history of the peace movement?
There has always been some opposition to war, but the peace movement really didn't become popular until World War II in 1917. This is probably due to the fact that this is the time period of the women's rights movement, and more women were willing to fight for what they believed in. Jeannette Rankin, the first woman voted into Congress in 1916, had a huge influence on the peace movement when she voted against the United States entry into World War I. Though this and her history in fighting women's rights made her extremely unpopular in Congress, nothing discouraged her, and she became very popular among women peace activists. Even after the tragedy of Pearl Harbor, Rankin stood by her pacifist beliefs and voted against the United States entry into World War II.
I want to stand by my country, but I cannot vote for war.
As war rage spread across the United States, peace activists found very few supporters, and as a result, the movement wasn't nearly as strong as it was during World War I. But as the fight for democracy started in Vietnam, the peace movement picked itself right back up. Groups that were against the war and for non-nuclear proliferation started popping up all over the place. The two most popular groups were the National Committee for a Sane Nuclear Policy, started in 1957, and the Student Peace Union, started in 1959. However, the group faded out in 1964, and its members joined the Students for a Democratic Society that was created in 1960.
The National Committee for the Sane Nuclear Policy was created by Norman Cousins and Clarence Pickett. Cousins was the editor of the Saturday Review, and Pickett was a member of the American Society of Friends, a Quaker group.
The group's goal was to get a reduction in nuclear weapons throughout the United States.
Students for a Democratic Society organized the first national anti-war demonstration in the spring of 1965.
Approximately 20,000 people attended, though the crowd was primarily students. Probably the most important part of the peace movement during the Vietnam War was when many of the civil rights leaders emerged as active proponents of peace in Vietnam. Martin Luther King Jr., a civil rights leader famous for his "I Have a Dream" speech, expressed his support for the peace movement on moral grounds. In 1967, he spoke at the Riverside Church in New York, stating, "A time comes when silence is betrayal." This comment led into a speech on how the war in Vietnam was draining resources and how the percentage of African American casualties was unusually high compared to the entire population. Support for King grew rapidly, especially among African American activists. He fought for peace until his assassination in 1968, just 1 year after he made the entire nation aware that the administration of foreign policy was being questioned. In 2001, after the attack on the World Trade Center, activists that were usually against the war were justifying the United States' attack on Afghanistan. This could be completely due to the fact that the Americans felt threatened, but it could partially be due to the fact that President Bush stated in an address to Congress and to the American public,
"Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists."
However, after the Bush administration broadened the war on terrorism to include threats of war against the Saddam Hussein regime in Iraq and created the United States Patriot Act, activists were not quite as understanding. They decided that the war in Iraq was much more controversial than the war in Afghanistan, and that there was no evidence that had ever been found linking al-Qaeda to Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Peace activists began speaking out against the war through protests, using the internet to create more powerful mobs of people and to communicate more rapidly.
Peace, not war.
Supporting peace was, and in a way still is, considered unpatriotic. Many people were arrested for holding up "No War for Oil" signs in airports and for wearing "Give Peace a Chance" t-shirts.
That you can now get at Walmart. Prior to the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, Stephen Downs, a 6-year-old lawyer, was arrested at a shopping mall in New York. Downs, who was wearing a t-shirt with the message "Give Peace a Chance" on the front and "Peace on Earth" on the back, was asked by guards to leave the mall. Say what?
On October 24, 2003, at an airport in Columbia, South Carolina, where President Bush's plane was scheduled to land, Activist Coalition Director Brett Bernsey raised a sign in the airport crowd that read, "No War for Oil." Police ordered Bernsey to leave the area. Say what?
Is the peace movement going on right now?
As technology has progressed, peace activists have been able to reach out and gather more supporters through film festivals, websites, phone groups, giving broadcasted speeches, and even making it into the news. The peace movement has become even more popular, and peace centers have been set up around the United States to honor some of the most famous activists, such as Martin Luther King and Jeannette Rankin.
Also, hundreds of strong new groups have come together in support of peace and work to organize rallies, maintain informational websites, and work to get Democratic members elected into office.
So why are you guys out standing on the street today?
Well, we're a little group we started last week. There's 6 of us so far, and we're standing out here every Monday from 12 to 12:30 with our peace centers, because we think people need to think about peace, and it's not getting enough attention. So,
Do you guys consider yourselves peace activists?
absolutely.
Yes.
I do, yeah. Yeah, I think we
Absolutely.
do. I do, yes. So,
That's really great. I really love that you guys are supporting the peace movement.
universal peace activists.
So far, the peace movement has been unsuccessful in its call for no war and non-nuclear proliferation. Many people that are against the movement say,
The anti-war movement lost the argument on the efficacy of alternative means partly because of its simplistic choice of no war, and they have accomplished nothing.
Activists, however, say that the magnitude of the ongoing demonstrations against the war,
the fact that they clearly articulated that they were not a movement to support the regime of Saddam Hussein,
in fact that the rush into the war exposed many major divisions and contradictions inside the United States military,
and the fact that the racist nature of the war against the Iraqi people has been exposed proves that the movement has been successful.
Through the peace movement, maybe someday we will live on Earth where there is no war, and we will all frolic through the flowers.
The World Peace Prayer. Lead me from death to life, from falsehood to truth. Lead me from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead me from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our hearts. Let peace fill our world. Let peace fill our universe.
That's really great.